Hi guys, it's your loving Mums McSee here with Volume 2 of Mums Musings. Cam told me that he'd like to see something with examples, personal examples from my life. So I'm going to step away from Noom for a minute, and I decided to focus on the topic of feedback. And I know this is something that I've talked to you both and Zach as well about in the past, but it bears repeating. So I'm going to repeat this again with a couple examples that you'll have for posterity. Because it's one of those things that you can't just listen to once and fully absorb. You've got to refresh it, and maybe it'll resonate for you a little bit better at different times and different circumstances. So, feedback. Now, you can get feedback from your employer, definitely, from any supervisor, from a professor, from a parent, from a friend, from a coach. There's a lot of people that you could seek feedback from, or who are willing to offer you feedback. I'd say in all cases, it's an invaluable gift. I see feedback as a golden opportunity. And that's because the easiest feedback to give is, you're doing fine, you're doing great, because I don't have to think when I give that feedback. I don't have to take a risk. I don't have to put any prep time into that. And giving constructive feedback is awkward. If I'm going to give honest, constructive feedback, it's not only awkward to receive, it's awkward to give. And if I didn't give a darn about somebody, why would I put myself through that? So if I am willing to put myself through that, or if you find any supervisor or anybody who's willing to put themselves through that to give you some honest, sincere feedback, then it's a gem and you should appreciate it and take advantage of it. Now, receiving feedback is hard because this gets to our core of who we are. It gets to a little bit of our fears of what we might be afraid are our weaknesses, and we might be afraid we're not good enough. And that's all very normal. So it's really hard to receive feedback, constructive criticism at least. And most people, the most natural way to respond is to be defensive. And whether that's internally or externally. So if somebody gives me feedback, I could be thinking, this guy's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Gee, he's focusing on this, and it was really just one circumstance. Why is he blowing that out of proportion? Or he doesn't really know me, or who's he to talk? That's not really what happened. And you might actually say some of these things to, I'm just going to call it your supervisor, but it means any kind of person who's giving feedback. You might say, well, that's not really what happened, or here's why I was late to that meeting, and try to give reason away. And if you're not doing that out loud, chances are good you're doing that internally to your internal monologue, discrediting the negative things or making excuses. Or me, for example, I got feedback that I was too emotional in some situations. And I got that feedback from somebody who I thought didn't display any emotion. And so, I was automatically thinking, oh, of course he thinks I'm too emotional because he doesn't get passionate about anything. And I'm also thinking, yeah, I get emotional in some of these meetings. Or you could see how I'm responding by my facial expressions. You'll know whether I'm happy or angry or sad or fed up or whatever. I don't hide those feelings. And I would tell myself, well, okay, that's because I'm a straight shooter. I'm sincere. I get passionate about my work and the people I work with, and I care about what I'm doing, and it's good to get passionate. So I'm making excuses and kind of dismissing the feedback that I got. And and next year comes around and I get my feedback, and again it says I'm too emotional, and and again I'm saying, well, get over it. That's who I am, at least inside to myself. And I've given lots of feedback to employees. And when I do, I've been very, very thoughtful and careful and reflective. And I do my very best. I get some inputs from other people, but I really think hard about what I see as that employee's strengths and opportunities for improvement. And I've seen them. I've seen the ones who some argue back at me, just directly and openly. And I know that at the end of the day, they're not getting anything out of this. They're going to dismiss it, and they're not hearing me, and I'm not going to see an improvement because I know they're writing me off. And then there's the ones who don't say anything, but I basically know that they're doing the same thing. And like most human beings, come next year or next quarter, whenever the next review is, guess what? Same opportunities for improvement. So why should you respond differently? Well, first, your supervisor might actually know what he or she is talking about. They might have some expertise. They might have some good insights. They might have something that's valuable for you to learn. But even if you don't think that they're expert or particularly wise, even if you don't have tons of respect for them, worst case scenario, well, let me just back up. I don't know any examples where anybody's going to lie in a one-on-one feedback situation. Maybe they lie when they talk to other people about you, but they're not going to meet with you one-on-one and say, you're not good at this, or I've noticed you're late to meetings when you haven't been late to meetings. They're not going to make something up and lie about it. So either they know what they're talking about, and there really is something that would be good for you to improve, or at the very worst, they're telling you what they perceive. Now, maybe you think their perception is wrong, but it's their perception. It's what they think, what they see, how they're perceiving you. And that's, again, gold for you to find out what the supervisor or coach or friend or professor or whatever is actually perceiving you to be or to do. So it's really worth listening hard. So my recommendation is to fight the urge to be defensive and just hear them out. Listen really hard. Watch their facial expressions. Read between the lines. Listen hard. Now, don't read too much between the lines. Like, don't assume something that they haven't actually said without asking follow-up questions. So if you think you understand, repeat it. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you think that I need to do such and such more or better. Um, and then, they'll confirm or say, no, I don't mean exactly that, but you can ask for examples, and you can ask for, well, what would have been a better way for me to respond in that situation? Or, how can I improve? And you can also feel free to ask for specifics about, what would they suggest for you in order to learn this new skill or develop this new skill or habit. If they have any suggestions about how you could do that. That might be too much for the initial meeting. Your initial meeting, it's going to be hard because you're working hard not to feel defensive, and that's not easy. And you're working hard to hear it with an open mind. You should have notes. You should be taking notes and write down what you're hearing, because it's so hard, because it's so emotional to really absorb it and remember. So it takes some notes. And then maybe later on you follow up and say, okay, I was thinking about what you said. And here's some of the things I thought, I would do to try to develop that skill or become better at such and such. What do you think? Do you have any other suggestions? Now, I know I told you, I don't know if I've told everybody, all of you, but I've told at least some of you my Corey example. Corey is somebody who worked for me. I had a lot of great lawyers working for me. Corey was a great lawyer. And come time for his annual review, I would sit down and think hard about, what skills did I really see this past year? What are his strengths? And what are his opportunities for improvement? And after I thought about all of that, I would then go into his file and I would take out his last year's review and take a look at that. Now, when I did this, for 90% of people, if not higher, at least I always came up with 3 strengths, 3 opportunities for improvement. For almost all the people, those opportunities for improvement, or at least 2 out of the 3, were the same for the following year. In Corey's case, year 2, his strengths, his list of strengths, were those 3 things I said that were opportunities for improvement the previous year. So I was impressed. Come next year, I had already forgotten about that. Did it again, thought about his strengths, thought about his opportunities for improvement, pulled up his file, and once again, I see that all 3 of his strengths were the 3 opportunities for improvement that I told him the previous year. So, so he got an extra strength, which was, sincerely listens to feedback and makes improvement. That is huge, huge, really impressed me, but wonderful for his self-growth and the improvement of his career. And I asked him, how did he do that? And he kind of laughed at me because a little bit, he chuckled, because he did the obvious thing. He wrote down notes of what I had said were his opportunities to improve. And he reopened those notes on a regular basis, like every month, and thought about it, and thought about how he could demonstrate this new skill, how he could turn a weakness into a strength. He figured out ways to develop those skills and put them into practice so that I noticed them. So I've hadn't seen that before. Anybody do that with that, that much success. But it's so powerful. So that would be my challenge for you, is to listen hard to the feedback. First of all, to seek the feedback. Sometimes it comes automatic with your job. They have to give you feedback, whatever it is, quarterly, whatever. If they don't, then ask for it. And, Carolyn, I've talked to you about this. I still think it's not too late to contact WNPR and to ask for some feedback on how you did this summer. There's no downside. What? She could think, wow, she waited a while to do that, but that's better than not coming back to you at all, not coming back to her at all. So ask for feedback. Cam, I think you kind of know this. You learned this college, and I think you started to learn it in grammar school when you wanted to be trustee scholar. You went to your teachers and said, this is my goal. This is what I want to accomplish. Can you give me feedback on what I need to do in order to achieve that? Can you give me advice? And the same thing means, it's meeting with your professors. You used to meet with your professors all the time. I presume part of what you're doing is you're asking questions about the class, and you're also asking feedback on how you performed, and you're adapting. That's good. So keep asking for feedback. It's hard to receive it, but it gets easier and easier all the time. And thank the person afterwards. Maybe just with a follow-up email, or just find some way of letting them know that you really appreciate it. Because to give good feedback, it's an investment of time. It's not just the time, it's the time that they actually spend talking with you, but they're going to spend some time prepping and really thinking hard. And like I said, it's not easy giving constructive feedback. So the fact that they did that is something worth thanking them for. Take your notes, go back later on, and make a plan. How can you, either actively improve in this area where it might actually be a bit of a weakness? And if you honestly reflect and think, well, this is not a weakness of mine, but somehow so-and-so has the impression that this is a weakness of mine, then think about, how can I change that impression? What can I do to let them see that that's not who I am? That's not what I do. And that's almost the same. It's almost as important, is to make sure that you are giving people the impression you want to be giving them. But you got to make a plan, and you got to follow through with the plan, because it's so easy to take the feedback and to care about it that day or that week, but then you get busy in your day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month life and all the other obligations and everything that you have. It's so easy to just put this on the back burner and forget. That's what I used to do. I used to have good intentions, but if you let it, life will just take you from one urgent matter to the next. So I really recommend that you keep a journal where you write these things in, these goals. That kind of fits with the topic last time of setting goals and setting up a plan. But follow up at least monthly. Like, maybe you pick a day of the month. Maybe it's the 12th or whatever, because that's your anniversary of your birthday, or the first, or the last day of the month, or whatever it is. You might want to pick a day that you say to yourself, okay, this is where I'm going to review my journal and remind myself of what my goals had been for the month, and just refresh them, check off the things that you've achieved, reevaluate, see if you could think of, other ways. And then maybe also follow up with the person if you've got an ongoing relationship. So this is not best for your WNPR feedback, Carolyn, but if it's a supervisor or even a friend, or whoever it was that gave you, your professor, whoever it was that gave you some feedback, go to them and say, I've been working on it. Here's what I've been doing. Have you noticed any improvements? Do you have any other suggestions on what I could do to further improve? Whether, are there opportunities for me to put into practice what you'd like, what you said you'd like to see more of, or do you have any particular recommendations for books or videos or who knows what, for how to learn this skill? That will earn you lots of goodwill from whoever it was who gave you the advice, that you took it seriously, that you're caring, that you're following up, that you appreciated it. So, that's my strong recommendation for you. Overall, this is really important and invaluable advice. And it's something that many people don't learn to do until mid to late career, if at all. There's a lot of people who just never learn how to receive feedback and how to really act on it. So if you can manage to implement, I know it's not easy, but if you can manage to implement this, you set yourself up for great success in personal growth and in your career and whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. This is going to really help you improve and get ahead in lots of ways. So I recommend that you put that in place and try to do a better and better job at receiving feedback and responding to it as you go forward in your life. Let me know what you think, and I love you. Take care.